we're going to be extending our exploration of the Metta Bhavana. Sorry, words for a moment. We're extending our exploration of the Metta Bhavana practice for a few more weeks. So I hope that's all right with you. And then we'll be moving on to doing the mindfulness of breathing, or well, we'll be exploring mindfulness practice in general after that. So what we're going to do today is have a look at the other aspects of metta. So you've got the basic metta practice, but there are, within the Buddhist tradition, 3 other aspects of metta, which basically are the basic response, sense, feeling of metta when it moves into different situations. So when metta meets suffering, it becomes compassion. When metta meets positivity or joy, it becomes sympathetic joy. And then the last quality is equanimity, which is equanimity can sound a little bit cold, you know, being equanimous towards something might sound like being a bit indifferent, but actually it's a very positive emotion which is able to stay very steady in response to both suffering and joy, or anything that arises within experience. But it's not a disconnected feeling. It's very much a very intimate kind of feeling, equanimity. So yeah, we're going to have a look at these today. So traditionally these are called the Brahma Viharas. So Brahma is a word in Pali Sanskrit for God, or in in the Buddhist tradition and the Hindu traditions, there isn't necessarily a God in the way that we think about it in the West, but generalized sort of idea of gods. And gods occupy different sort of planes of existence. So you have sort of low quality gods, and then you have high quality gods, and then you have kind of Brahma at the top, as it were, as being top god. So dwelling Vihara, and Vihara means kind of like a dwelling place. So the Brahma Viharas are these sort of godlike spheres, but they're godlike because of the metta, the positive emotion that's experienced there. And their other name is the apramanas, which means something like boundless spheres, or where they have no measure, they have no limit to them, the qualities of metta. And we've probably already tasted this to some extent, experienced this to some extent, that with metta, it has a very unbounded feeling to it. Potentially, we can just feel metta for all living beings whatsoever. And I think also to emphasize that the quality of metta isn't necessarily something that we have to generate. There are different approaches to meditation in general, and we're going to explore this in our series around mindfulness that's going to be coming up. So there are different approaches to meditation in general, and one approach is that we are here and we generate these qualities of mindfulness, or we generate these qualities of metta, but it's equally valid to talk about that as it were, just uncovering a quality that is already present. So just in the way that awareness actually is always present in our experience from the moment that we get up in the morning, although sometimes it doesn't feel like we're very in touch with that quality. Metta is also there in our underlying experience. So in a way, we're just uncovering what's natural to us as human beings. And it's clear that we experience the qualities of metta when we're not meditating. We respond from the heart to various situations, to suffering particularly, and we can even respond sympathetically to other people's good fortune, and that we generally respond to good things done in the world. Yeah. So yes, another thing I was going to say is, so if we've been doing metta for a little while, we often talk about setting up the practice, but to some extent, once we know what the quality of metta is, we can just get back to that quality. And once we're able to access it, I mean, the whole point of the Metta Bhavana practice is just to be able to access that quality of metta. We may be able to go just straight to it in our experience, and we don't need to go through, the methodology or even the stages. Not that the stages aren't important, but it's a bit more like, we might get into the basic quality of metta, and then we call somebody to mind, or somebody just comes to mind, and metta meets that person. So the stages, there's always somebody who's neutral, there's always somebody who's we're close to, there's always somebody, the so-called difficult person. Although in a way, actually, there aren't any difficult people. In a way, it's a misnomer. Really, the difficulty is just in our experience. So yes, I mean, it's important that those, we're always going to be meeting metta with that, but we don't necessarily have to kind of go through the stages sort of laboriously, and we can, we get into this basic state of metta, and then in our experience, whatever it meets, it responds in whatever way it wants to respond. And we can, move around in those stages as well. So at one point we might be calling to mind somebody who's more of a neutral person. We might be calling to mind somebody who's so-called difficult person. So we're just, rolling with our experience, as it were. So it's just to sort of unhook from that idea that you've got to go through this rather sort of fixed way of developing it. And, it might be that, like I just said, it might be that you can quite quickly just go to that basic response of metta. Oh, and one more thing. Okay, yeah. We'll introduce this here. So sometimes, in my experience, it can be difficult to get that initial connection some days. Some days it's easy. The metta is just there, quite easy to connect with. Some days it's not. And quite a good way I've found, of connecting into that basic quality is through a method called the heart wish. So the heart wish is like a question that one drops in, to one's mind. So the question might be something like, what do I truly, really want in life? And asking this question, for me, just brings up the basic desire for things like happiness, well-being, not to suffer, these sorts of things, which are very connected, to the quality of metta. So we can ask that heart wish question at any point, particularly if we're struggling to connect, and it can bring us straight back to the underlying desire of our life, which is usually something like to be happy, to be connected, love. It might be those sorts of things. Sometimes we might need to sort of dig into that a little bit to kind of find it. And I would suggest, dropping that question in, and, you might just waiting for a response. It's a bit like we do with the sentences, may I be well. So drop the heart wish question in and just see what comes. So it might be a a word or a phrase or an image or just a kind of bodily sense. Yeah. So we'll include that into the practice today as well. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say. So let's do a meditation. Let's do this Brahma Viharas meditation. The different aspects of metta. So setting up our posture. Unhooking from a thinking mind and allowing awareness to flow down into the body, the tactile, sensate experience. And just letting the body be relaxed. So once we've established our posture and made any adjustments, we can just allow the posture to hold us, sense of grounding, contact with the floor or cushions or chair. And the alertness of the body, the chin tucked slightly in, sense of lifting through the spine and out the top of the head. And then once the posture is established, just relax whatever can be relaxed. So there's the minimal amount of effort and energy that's going into just maintaining the posture, and the rest of the body can be relaxed, at ease. And unhook from the thinking mind, come down into the body, into the tactile, sensate experience. Come down from the head and face, and bringing the awareness down to the lower abdomen. Although we may not be very aware of it, just this act of coming into aware presence in the body, the quality of metta is already there in that awareness. So there's a bright, seeing kind of quality to awareness. Awareness as illumination of experience. But there's also a warm, loving quality. So that quality of attention we have when we are listening to somebody very openly, or that quality of warmth of attention when we are, say, looking at something beautiful, maybe like a flower. There's a kindliness inherent within awareness. Although it's not always true, the sense of metta is often focused around the heart or some way connected to the heart center in our experience. And if it helps, we can bring our attention into the heart center, that area of the body around the heart. So we'll do the heart wish. So asking ourselves the question, what is our own deepest wish for ourselves? What is it I truly want? allowing that to inquiry to drop into the heart center. Noticing what comes back. Words, phrases, images, or felt senses. And letting the heart wish, as it were, merge into the background sense, feeling of warmth. Letting it pervade the rest of our experience, pervade the body. Going beyond the body, the heart wish may naturally want to include other beings. Our own deepest desire for well-being, for happiness, might naturally want to share itself with others and the world. allowing this sense of the heart wish, our deepest desire for happiness, for well-being, for release from suffering, allowing it to be unbounded. In fact, noticing that it is unbounded. This feeling, this sense, this heart wish is there for whatever we encounter, whoever we encounter. There can be a sense that not producing this sense of metta, it's just there. We are just allowing it to be, to come out of the background of our experience. Just like the heart wish is always there, even if it's deep in the background of our experience. Desire for happiness, for well-being. Just not getting in the way of it, allowing it to flow through us. So turn our mind to these other aspects of metta. First, by bringing to mind the suffering in the world. Suffering in our own experience, suffering in those people that we know, those we don't know, and the general suffering that there is in the world. So we already know what suffering is. It's a very real part of our experience. So allowing metta, the heart wish, to just meet that suffering. If it helps to think of specific instances of suffering, we may not need to do this. We can just respond to the general sense of suffering. It's in our experience, it's in others, it's in the world. Noticing how the feeling of metta responds to the knowledge of suffering. No living being wants to suffer. I'm conscious too of not getting too drawn into specific instances of suffering, not getting over-identified. When that happens, we tend to, the thinking mind tends to get going. That can draw us away from the basic heart response. So checking in that we are still staying with that basic underlying metta in our experience. So we'll move into the stage of mudita, sympathetic joy. Just allowing the basic underlying metta to meet with the qualities of goodness, kindness that there are in the world, that there are in living beings. So it's not just joy, but responding to all positive qualities that exist. There can be a sense of resonance or taking delight in the positive qualities in the world. In the happiness of living beings, in well-being, in beings being free from suffering. Taking delight in qualities like humor or innocence, people's compassionate response, or people's taking responsibility for themselves and others. People's underlying desire to be a good person, to be someone who doesn't harm others. Allowing the metta to resonate with these positive qualities in the world. rejoicing in specific acts of kindness done by people that we know or by ourselves, people we don't know. All the helpful, useful, kindly acts. People's basic desire for friendliness, for the creation of harmony. Checking in again with the underlying sense of metta. If need be, we can come back to the heart wish, the deepest desire in ourselves for happiness and well-being. Being aware in our own experience, there are so-called good and bad, skillful and unskillful acts and feelings, emotions. Letting the metta respond to the totality of our own experience. To the so-called good and bad, Letting metta be there for all of our experience. The joyful part, the difficult part, the suffering part, the happy part. And letting the metta also be there for those same aspects of everyone's experience, the so-called good and bad in other people, the skillful, the unskillful, the suffering, the joy. Boundlessness of metta, meeting all experience in ourselves, in others, in the world, with this underlying warmth, positivity, friendliness. Acknowledging that our experience is like this. Some of it is wonderful and amazing. Some of it is unpleasant or even horrendous. And the same is true in other people. And the same is true in the world. Letting the metta expand to embrace it all equally. The metta that lies in the background of all experience. All experience deserves equal love. There's no real difference in anything in the manifest world. This is the so-called quality of equanimity. It takes everything in, not in a detached way, but in an intimate way. Metta has the potentiality to be with all experience, all that arises.